Hi Martha folks, this is Elina. Today's video is the last video that I'm doing in 2021, and everyone is now posting about New Year's resolutions for 2022 and new goals and new achievements that they are going to make or they want to make. So this is the time to review the grounds, the goals, the estimations, and in other words, to have a massive checkup on how life is going. First of all, I want you to share in the comments what are your resolutions for 2022, what it is that you want to achieve. And I just want to express my thoughts in this video in regard to this subject. My main resolution, not only for the new year, but also for my entire life since I was about 23, has been to enjoy what it is that I choose to do and to choose wisely. The issue with this mindset is that not many of us actually do allow themselves to pick what it is that they want. Not what their families, spouses, parents, children, teachers, students, friends want them to do, but what actually they want themselves. Unfortunately, life is it's overflowing with excuses, and the opportunities to use these excuses are waiting for us at every single corner. For example, we have the age, circumstances, doubts, family, money, country, you name it. We have so many things that can actually make us believe that we are not a good fit or we are not supposed to do whatever our desire is, whatever we really aspire to go for. You name it, and there are many more. But hey, think about it. If you're constantly depriving yourself of choosing your path and you disregard what you really wish for, if you're not going for your dream job, dream profession, dream team, dream family, dream country, then it means that you are getting yourself punished, and the punishment is the worst one ever, which is not living your own life. Or there is another one, really trendy. No one needs what it is that I'm doing. Believe me, if you think it's important, then someone else will need it too. Everyone, literally everyone has doubts. Even those people who seem to run it all. Actually, it's good that they do have doubts because this is what brings them further. This is what gets them out of the comfort zone and they're able to go on. For example, if I would think that no one needs what it is that I'm doing, I would not be an artist. And I would not have this YouTube channel. I would not be sharing my recordings, my thoughts, and my advice. And if you are watching this right now, it means that my videos actually do bring either something useful or some inspiration into your life as well. Let me briefly tell you my story so it doesn't seem that I have never ever had an opportunity in my life to use something as an excuse. Some of you may know that I have been moving quite a lot. So the first time I changed the country is when my family moved to the United States from Ukraine. I was 15 years old. To say it was hard is to say nothing. My family is not rich by all means, so it was a real immigrant story with no savings, no backups, everything sold or given away in my birth country. My parents are musicians. They're not businessmen or anything like that. So I was living in the US for quite a while, and well, most of you know that American schools are the most expensive ones in the world. And I went to good schools, and I did have scholarships. But unlike in the 90s or early 2000s, they don't really give out full scholarships at top schools anymore. Well, they do sometimes, but very rarely. And I was very lucky to have partial scholarships and quite close to full when I was in my first master's, including some very generous help of private donors and foundations, for which I'm grateful from the bottom of my heart. up until today, and always will be grateful for, of course. But still, my life suddenly got spiced up by many thousands of dollars in student loans. I was, of course, working part-time as a church organist, as a piano teacher, as a piano accompanist, starting from around the senior year of my high school. And in addition to that, I took portrait photography and digital design gigs in order to make the ends meet. As the time went by, I had some money won from the piano competitions, but that was all going towards covering living expenses, and none of that was enough to pay back the student loans. Then at some point I left the US and I went to Switzerland and Italy for my second master's and a postgraduate course respectively. This was really a blind shot, as I did not know much about Switzerland at that point. I remember so well that I came there with $1,000 and I was supposed to pay $1,300 for the first semester at school. And I still had a lot in loans, which were partially paid out by my parents, who were really saving up to help me. By the way, they didn't go to any single vacation for about 5 years in order to be able to do that. Although I told them to not pay for my student loans, as I believe that it was my problem, not theirs, but they still did pay whatever they could. Thank you, parents. But you didn't have to do that, really. By this point, you probably want to say, Elina, what were you thinking, right? Well, I somehow realized at that point that money was important, but it was not everything. I had things I went for because they were important to me. And I wanted to be around the people that I loved, doing things that I loved. This sounds so simple, but it's so complicated to achieve, right? Sometimes. And I would say it takes some guts to make the leap. Someone told me in the beginning of my studies in Switzerland that one can apply for scholarships and stipends. So I had the website of the Swiss database of all the foundations, and I found some foundations that potentially might be able to help me. And I didn't know about any of those, and most of them actually don't have a website. So I went on and applied to around 65 foundations during my first year of studies. In fact, both of us did it. My boyfriend at the time, who's now my husband, and we filed applications so together it was about 130 scholarships on paper. So we had to print all that stuff out and put them in envelopes, each of them separately with stamps. So we had about 130 envelopes with applications in total during our first year. How insane does that sound to you? So we sent them all out and we were waiting. Most of them came back thick, meaning that all our documents were returned and they did not award us with scholarships. Of course, this is normal, you get rejections most of the time. But some of them came back slim, which means that the documents were not returned. They kept them and they provided us with some support. And the envelope only contained the one-page letter saying that we are awarded with a stipend. For example, this is how you know without actually opening the envelope. When it comes back thick, it means that all your stuff is returned and you're not awarded. If it's a thin one and you see that it comes from a foundation, 95% that they are going to give you some aid. To be honest, I'm so eternally grateful to all the foundations that supported us during the course of our living in Switzerland. This has been a lifesaver help. So during the following years, of course, we reviewed the rejections and we were not eligible to apply to some of them, so we only applied to those we were eligible for, which narrowed down the process. And of course, we didn't have to spend as much time as during the first year when we didn't know things yet and we just needed to give it a blind try. I can definitely say that we were really extremely lucky, but we're also on the lookout for the opportunities. And if you're on the lookout, you're gonna find something, somehow, somewhere, for sure. Also, a few months after my arrival to Switzerland, I started working part-time and freelancing as much as I could, because I combined all of those activities together, and I was working during all the time I could dedicate to working. I was able to eventually pay out all of my American student loans, which was huge for me at the time. And I will never forget the day when I sent out my last transfer to the US and how my mindset actually changed. The video about it is linked right here. Check it out. So in parallel, I started planning, creating and organizing my own artistic projects. The first project was probably just the craziest story that I have had in my life, or one of those. In order to make it, I went to Paris without any backups, without a residency, or without savings. Now I look back at this, I don't know how I made it actually. Well, I do, because of friends. Thanks to friends, thanks to everyone who participated in that craziness, who supported my ideas, I was able to premiere it and to bring it to other countries, luckily. But yeah, I'm fast forwarding a bit here. But at that point, I just took another leap and I went for it to follow my dream without really knowing if it's gonna come true, without any guarantees, without anything behind my shoulders. It all came together. I was really persistent and as always grateful to all the friends and all the colleagues who helped. Then I came back to Switzerland and applied for my first project grants. In Switzerland, that was fine. We made it. We performed the project twice, and then I applied for grants in the United States. And that was insane, because I spent about 4 months with my grant applications and I had no idea how to write grants. I had no idea how strict things are in the States. So I got all rejections during my first year. And that was really devastating, because back at that time I believed that my project was so good and now everyone will want to see it and we will go places and I will get the grants, and I didn't, and I didn't expect that I will get zero support. So of course we couldn't go anywhere. And that was a breakdown for me. So I had to really think of, okay, how do I get out of there? Because that state was not nice when you are waking up in the morning and you don't want to get out of bed because you don't see any point. That's where I was in the beginning of 2017. At the end of 2016, in the beginning of 2017, for the New Year's, I realized that I need to change something about my state of being, about my health. So I started doing sports, and I believe that helped me get out of the mindset where I was, because I could not perform my project, which is something really difficult to deal with for every single artist, I think. So yeah, as I was going back on track, I was taking more gigs, more jobs, and I had to travel quite a lot around the area where I was living, so around the towns that were next to the place where I was living. So it seems that I was working part-time, but if you take the travel time into account, it actually probably would mean full-time. And I was continuing to create projects, so that meant something like double full-time, which was insane. It has always been insane, but entrepreneurship at its best, what can you do? And this is how it went for quite a few years after that. At some point I started asking myself, what is going to come next? Where am I going to take this from the place where it was? And I discovered that there was no way how I could get residency by being an artist entrepreneur in that country and not having an EU passport. So I realized that there was pretty much no point to try to stay because I just couldn't stay. I couldn't stay doing what it is I wanted to do. I couldn't stay on the conditions that would suit me. So my husband and I, at that point we were married, we made the decision to move out. And I was very selective and very strict about asking myself and finding responses to what it is that I genuinely want to do in my life. So the first answer would be the multidisciplinary project. By the way, this is the channel of my multidisciplinary organization, Intertwining Arts. We have created 4 full-scope films as of today when I'm filming this video. So we are making multidisciplinary projects, we perform them, and we create films out of them for all of you out there to see. If you have not checked that out, please go ahead, check it out, watch our trailers, watch our films, subscribe to that channel, and stay inspired with us. So yeah, another dream of mine have been to go for a doctoral school. And I have been thinking, okay, so how can one combine both in one, right? And browsing what is going on in Europe, because I quickly realized that if one is trying to cover more than one continent, it would be nearly impossible to do in one season because the rules are very different if you take the United States, if you take Australia, if you take New Zealand and England, all the English-speaking world pretty much. The doctoral degrees have certain requirements in the arts, and in Europe there are different requirements in most of the cases if you take the continental Europe, Scandinavia, and so on. So the research process just for the schools, just to understand the situation on the continent, Europe took me a few months, maybe about a year. I was not researching every single day, but it took me quite a while to create this kind of a map, like a picture with deadlines and requirements and what's going on and how things work. And that was all new to me because I know how DMA works in America, where I'm coming from, but I didn't know how things are working in Europe, and plus every single country has their own requirements, has their own eligibility guidelines and things like that. A video about that is linked up here. Check that out if it's relevant to you. So then after I realized that I had to narrow down to only one continent, that I could not apply to all the other English-speaking places like the US, Canada, Australia and stuff, but I had to choose where I'm applying to the English-speaking countries or I'm concentrating on continental Europe. I realized to concentrate on Europe and drop all the other continents. My backup plan was, if nothing works, to fly back to America and then apply to the States, to Canada, Australia, New Zealand, and all those English-speaking places. A video about how I was preparing my application for doctoral schools in Europe is linked again right here. Check it out if you want to find out more. So yeah, during that time, it was the year of 2020. The lockdown happened, I could not fly to any auditions, any interviews. My interviews were online. Some of the auditions were postponed to some later time periods, but our visas were running out, so taking the interviews and the auditions that were supposed to be live but were postponed was not an option for me because I needed to either get out of Schengen or have the new visa for a new country to do my doctorate. So there was a very funny point in our lives when we were supposed to move out in 3 months and we had no idea which continent we would be moving to. Can you imagine that? You don't know. You cannot make any plans. You cannot predict not only the country but the continent you're gonna be living on in 3 months. So of course we could not hire any movers, we could not be looking for an apartment, we could not be applying for visas. There was completely a blank wall in front of us and we could not make any plans in advance because we had no clue where we're gonna be moving. So, well, I feel I'm the luckiest person in the world. Now I can say that because the University of Music and Performing Arts Graz extended an invitation, so we were finally able to make our decision based on that. Long story short, after 2 months of researching, we were able to briefly travel to Austria and register in the country during 1 day. You know, when you register for medical insurance, you open up the bank account and all those things. So I was really researching on everything online, and then we could just apply for residence, sign the lease, and do a lot of things all in 1 day, which was insane. But that's how it was. It was a very packed day, but it worked. And we moved several weeks after that. And then another lockdown happened. When we were moving, we had no source of stable income. And I had a very clear thought in my mind. The thought was that I don't want to work if it's only for the money. I want to love what it is that I'm doing. Or in other words, I want to do only what I love as work. We were, of course, always on the lookout for grants and opportunities. A huge unexpected help came from the school itself. I got a stipend, which I did not plan for. I knew that there was a potential possibility to get a stipend, but I did not expect that I would get one right away as a new incoming doctoral candidate. So that was huge, and again, I'm extremely grateful. The state of Austria is really kind towards artists. They really aid during the lockdowns in difficult situations, so we were able to get support from the government. I don't know if there is any country in the world, any other country in the world that treats artists with such high respect. I'm talking from the, governmental perspective, because they create several different funds for artists if you are self-employed, if you're not self-employed, for example, and so on. There are possibilities to make the ends meet if you have no income due to the lockdown. And I was able to get some project funding, again, plan my projects, organized everything, wrote grant proposals, got some funding, performed the projects, recorded the projects. So this is how things work. And one of the biggest resolutions for the next year for me is to adjust my career direction. I have quite a clear sense of what I want to do in my career, but I'm going to be stepping onto the path of actually accomplishing these things. And I'm so excited to tell you particularly why, but I must hold on to this news until very soon. You will hear much more about it, I promise. So, to summarize, do you think that I never had excuses? All the time. Name anything. For example, a language barrier. I studied a lot and I learned several new languages in addition to the ones that I knew already. It's not perfect, but it works, and it helps me every day. It helps me all the time. The immigration departments in every single country are a huge excuse to give up literally anything when you're trying to move somewhere internationally. But the only thing to do is to not take it personally, to keep going, to keep calling, to keep emailing, to keep bringing more documents if they ask you to, and to just never giving it up. Let me give you another one. Running artistic projects internationally. Hell, this is tough. But if I drop that, I will probably collapse from uselessness, because this is the place with which I dwell. And yeah, well, sometimes I also think, oh, maybe nobody needs what it is that I'm doing. But if I quit, it means that I would betray not only myself, but also my family, my teachers, my parents, my team, my friends, my husband, and everybody who has ever helped any single projects that I have ever created. We all want things to be easy, but it doesn't work this way. And actually, it is good that it doesn't work this way, because it brings value to it and it makes us appreciate what it is that we really do and what it is that we want to do, what it is that we love, and also all of those people because of which our projects are possible. If you're still not on your way to do what it is you really want to do in your life, the time is now. I mean, it's literally right now. Thanks for watching this video. Give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell. Happy New Year. I will see you in 2022. Bye.